Happy Thursday! It's going to be a bit of an odd midweek special for Retake the Week. We had a little logistical problem not allowing certain members of this show to be available on Sunday, and so we've decided to do it midweek. Bit of an odd timing, but still, there's a lot to recap, there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with, well, something that needed to be done Sunday but couldn't. That'll obviously be done now. That is the member Q&A. Some members left some questions. It's not going to be a particularly long one. It wasn't a big member Q&A special like it was last time we did one of these. And we're going to jump straight into it. I think, Quacke, you've got some interesting takes on this first question. And honestly, I think so do I, but I'll let you express your thoughts first. What one move with a sub 500k buyout, roughly, because, we're not privy to that information, we're not as connected as we may seem, would improve G2 the most? And that's a question from GSAC Elm. So, Quacke, take it away.
Yeah, GSAC Elm, channel member, of course. All of you should be channel members and ask more questions because these Q&As are really fun. What one move would improve G2 the most? So there's a couple to think about here. I think you don't have that many players to think about getting, but the one that jumped out of the page for me was that G2 should get Perfecto. Just instantly when I read the question. And I don't think you could do much better than that. I think Perfecto would go in for Nexa, and I think just the general level in such positions that Perfecto brings, I think that's just... I don't know if you could do much better, because you can't improve the star players. Like, you're gonna need to get someone supportive, and as far as I'm concerned, like good level Perfecto, that's like you can't get any better in like those positions at all.
I'm very confused. For a start, this isn't a fantasy world question. How good is Perfecto's English?
Oh, I think it's fine because I think Seaman would have spoken English where he was on for quite a while when Kios and Krias were there. The team that turned into K23, he was there for a good while, and I'm pretty sure they would have spoken English because they had a bunch of, well, they had two non-CIS players at one point or other.
Because I'm not sold on that as angle. And secondly, I disagree entirely that you can't improve star players because you don't have 3 star players on this roster. You have 3 bums and then 2 star players. So you can definitely improve the firepower of this roster for a start, because Hunter hasn't done jiddly squat since what, like mid 2023.
When I say that, I mean you don't improve Nico or Monesi. You just don't really do that.
Yeah, and I agree. You can't improve Nico or Monesi. There's 3 other players, though, and there's 3 players I think that are up for contention in terms of being cut. Now, the difficulty is a direct IGL upgrade that costs me less than 500k on a buyout, I'm not sure really exists right now. I wouldn't be confident in saying that there is one. Perhaps Glaive I can get for like 499.99, if I sweet talk my way into that deal. But aside from that, I don't really think there's an upgrade for Hooksy. In terms of upgrades for Nexa and Hunter, well, we've got a whole list of those, realistically, that could be upgrades, especially just slight upgrades. But I think the biggest one, and that's the point, is to find the biggest upgrade, is you brought it up, I think it's bringing in Blame F. I don't even care if you bring it in for Nexa or Hunter. You might think it's optimal to bring in for Hunter. I'm not bothered. Honestly, I'm not bothered. Force Hunter into worse roles. What's he going to do? Get worse? He's already been pretty shit. Bring someone who's actually going to find impact in all those nice spots. Bring in Blame F, and I think your team goes from being, well, was it like maybe 10th in the world in terms of actual playing level, like right now it's what we saw at Pro League, to, more consistently a top sort of 4 contender. Irritatingly, though, we have these conversations about G2, and it's all about taking their floor up. It's not really about moving their ceiling higher, because with Nico Monesi, their ceiling at any given moment is theoretically crazy high. It's just about, in these group stages, not embarrassing yourself. When you get to the playoffs, not losing a quarter-final, or realistically looking like you have a chance on all 3 maps in a semi, rather than just having moments where it's Monesi, a dream, and a bunch of people chatting, because apparently that's how we call games now. It's just everyone talks. That's what they make their fucking roster moves on. So that's my opinion, is you bring in Blame F, you massively increase your floor, because no matter the opposition, Blame F's going to get his 20. And you finally look like a consistent elite team, and you give yourself a chance to win a few events.
Okay. So, first of all, I'm operating under the assumption that Perfecto did speak English on Seaman, in which case this would be fine. it's possible Keo spoke Russian, but I'm going to operate on that assumption. And yes, it is about raising G2's floor, and in that regard, Blame F, that's a big firepower upgrade. But Blame F also, like, I feel like he has a reliable output, but it doesn't really solve the root issue. I think G2 could manage with Hunter, but they just cannot do anything with Nexa, and that's sort of why I feel like you could bring in Blame F for Nexa as well, but I think Hunter sort of he can stay here, and in terms of raising the floor, that's where Perfecto just I don't think it, like, even if there is no buyout requirement, I don't think you can do much better than Perfecto in that regard. So for the sake of adding some more stability to this team, I think Perfecto is probably the best you can do in this case. So like you said, it's not a fantasy world. You need to improve the floor, and I mean, G2 will always make firepower moves. They'll always. I'm pretty sure the next move that G2 are going to make isn't going to be to raise their floor. It's going to be to bring in someone like Blame F. It might even be Blame F.
Yeah,
Realistically, I think
but
that's the next move they're going to make.
there is a lot of ways to move your floor up in Counter-Strike, and one of them is to cut dead fucking weight and bring in someone with a right hand that's a working index finger, and that guy is going to be Blame F. And I don't think Perfecto can do the same thing. Like, Perfecto is a great player who can really elevate teams, but not when there's complete calamity everywhere else in terms of the fragging. He's not a great output in terms of damage, in terms of fragging. He never has been. What he's been is a really elite piece. He's an elite piece on elite teams. This team does not play like an elite team in every map because they lack consistent players outside of the Perfecto. So if Perfecto's in the roster, you still have Hooksy calling his game, let's put it generously, and playing, as far as we can say, playing. And then you still have, if in theory, Hunter doing sweet fuck all with great spots. So Perfecto could be setting him up to perfection, taking aggro exactly how you'd want to, do everything perfectly. Nexus, Hunter's still going to be shit. That's the problem. So I don't think you can solve like Hunter being bad by having Perfecto there being a real good support. I don't see how you're going to upgrade much in terms of overall performance if your star still isn't doing what he's supposed to do. It doesn't help that Nico's been the most inconsistent he's been in a long time, because I know some people have pointed out Nico's actually been still a top 20 player. Sure, on average. But he hasn't been, in every game, a star player. So if we're talking about deficits there, Hunter never being present, you can't just bring in another support and just hope it fixes that. You need to bring in a guy who's going to give you 20. Blame F gives you 20. That's always been the case and always will be. Hunter, right now, on a good day, gives you 12. Fuck out of here.
No, I think
bring in someone who can frag.
Hunter is at least, okay, if we're looking at Hunter, I think he still does have some big games and some big events right now. His EPL right now is, well, they kind of bombed out, but like nobody else was really doing much in this event. I think Hunter looked fine, statistically anyway. In this particular EPL, like he still keeps a level sometimes. Like we're not that far out from the Cologne win and the Katowice win, where Katowice in particular, where Hunter was really good, and it was actually Monesi and Nico who were the big shortcomings. I think Perfecto can have a lot of output. I think Cloud9 showed this. He's putting up very good numbers from, in theory, not perfect spots. Perfecto would work as a Hunter replacement as well, but like I'm not keeping Nexa. I think if BlameF comes in here, yes, the individual level gets quite a bit higher. The team doesn't do much more. I don't think G2 suddenly start winning trophies if you have BlameF in here instead of Nexa or Hunter. I think
they have a chance if they do, though. They have a chance. If you only one event out of fucking 4 have 3-star players, yeah, sure, you're never going to win. But if you have 4 out of 4 events, you have these star players, and you have the chance that Nico and Monesi are going to be the best players on the server for more than one map, which you do at any given moment. Monesi is going to be the best player on the server on almost every single game right now. He's been that good. Nico has moments. If you actually had a base to go off, so you're not losing calamitous series left, right, and centre, if you're not getting upset by M80 in groups forcing you to play 4 playoff series rather than the requisite 3 that every other like top team actually has to, yeah, you're going to have a chance to actually go and win events. Instead, you're looking at this sort of thing where, oh, okay, Hunter had a decent event, but decent by his standard right now, which should have been his average considering who he is and the roles he gets. If you had this alongside Nico consistent and elite and the best player in the world, close to Monesi playing amazing, you'd be fine. But instead we've had streak after streak of event where it's all up and down, all over the place, all to shit. Bring in a Rock who will give you a star performance no matter what. There's never been a doubt that BlameF's going to give you a star performance. So just bring that in, and then when you have the peak moments and everything starts lining up, you'll win the events. You won't have to settle for second or fourth. That's the philosophy I think they need to look for. They brought in Nexa with the idea of making the system work and the comms and, we need contribution. They cut a guy who could give them not as consistent, but still very high-level play. And look at them. They've just fallen off.
That's sort of what I'm thinking. They cut worse Perfecto and brought in Nexa. So, like, you just bring in Perfecto. Like, I see your point. I think you might be right. I think you might be right here. With only one move, I think you might be right that BlameF goes harder. But I don't think the Perfecto move is too far off. I think he can have consistent output, and like that's gonna ground the team into like it depends on what you mean as well. Like G2, yes, you're gonna have like a chance, and then you can have like a flash in the pan, and you have a Katowice or something like we had last year. If you put in BlameF, if you put in Perfecto, then I think G2 are like a stable playoff contender. I mean, they probably still won't win, but like they
already are a playoff contender though.
No, but at that point, they're always in semifinals. There's never like a stumble in the groups. It's always like go through the groups, move into playoffs, and that sort of depends. Does that elevate? Is that a higher level than occasionally winning an event and still being?
But that's not the team we're dealing with now. Now we're not dealing with that team from.
Now of course. Now we're
because we're not talking about Nico in the same sense.
Now we're dealing with shit. But like, if you make the BlameF move or the Perfecto move, I think you're getting two things. Perfecto is going to be like not the same peaks, a lot of consistency. BlameF is going to be more like you can have the highest peaks out of anyone, but you're not going to do that all the time. This is not like an era team. So yeah,
we're solving different problems in this because we're solving different problems here. Because if we're solving the problem of I have the best rifle in the world, the best AWPer, I need something else to fucking function. Maybe Perfecto's this case, but I don't have the best rifle in the world.
The answer here is G2 have two problems, and we have chosen to focus on one of them, one of them each. That's probably what we're doing here.
I think mine wins them an event. I think yours never does.
No, I don't think they win too much either. But I think it definitely. Maybe I just value consistency a lot more. But I think a team consistently being like a semi-final team, that's better than someone who's going to go out in groups and then win one.
They'll never go out in groups. They have too much to go out in groups at that point. Just way too much to ever go out in groups again. So you're talking about peaking at the semis versus bouncing between quarterfinals and winning events. I'd rather bounce between quarterfinals and winning events than just constantly being fourth. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, right. We have other stuff to talk about. You're on your lunch break or something. I
am, yes.
Yeah.
Until 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right. If the Copenhagen Major was played 100 times, who would win in the majority of instances? That's from Zerphub Derp. This one was a bit weird for me because firstly you have to talk about what does and doesn't change if you run it 100 times. Are we talking about 100 the exact same event in terms of we still have a crowd rush from like the quarterfinals? Because then we have we have to basically go through matchup by matchup and see who we think is most likely to win them. Clean slate, like nothing wrong.
Yeah, he's also saying if the entire major was replayed, so we can even operate off of the.
We can if we want, yeah.
We can operate from the same major bracket if we want, but like the question states, if the major was played 100 times, we probably have some change in who makes playoffs. Because we talked about this, there were more than 8 teams who probably realistically could have made playoffs at this major. So
yeah, but if you're looking at I'm gonna be honest. That makes
it almost impossible to discuss because I'm just saying. Yeah, we can't really say that the FaZe Spirit quarterfinal still happens at that point because
we can't necessarily say that, but we can say this. If you run it 100 times, the 8 teams you'd expect to go through to the top 8, the teams who are on paper the best 8, we got pretty fucking close to exactly that 8.
Yes.
We probably are 6 of 8. If you want to have an argument about Eternal Fire and Cloud9 versus Virtus Pro versus Heroic, like that's maybe about it. And I don't think they're too big a factor on whether or not much else changes. So if we talk it from that point of view, we then have to basically just look at it and say, who coming into these playoffs was expected to basically play the best Counter-Strike? Because that's what we're saying. Who's going to be playing the best Counter-Strike? So that's why I think it's almost impossible to pick someone other than FaZe. It's almost impossible. Unless we remove the ZywOo illness, we go back in time. Like if we're running it 100 times and ZywOo magically isn't sick and we get the best version of ZywOo, then we have to theorize, would that even be the best?
I think you're forgetting about Spirit, who also had problems with illness, which definitely impacted them in the playoffs.
Oh, you're right, they did.
And most likely Spirit let's say if you replay it 100 times, FaZe might not be 3-2, they might be 3-1, 3-0. And in that case, you end up with them at opposite sides of the bracket, and we end up with the Spirit FaZe final that people were projecting.
Yeah, but then we still have to say, like, if we take out the onus, we pretend they play like they played in Katowice, sure, Spirit win. But they didn't play like they played in Katowice. And then, at what point do they become sick? Like, there's a bunch of other questions.
At that point, say if we end up with a best of 3 final, FaZe versus Spirit, we actually had this best of 3 happen. It was ridiculously close, and then afterwards we find out Spirit basically didn't practice anything between groups and playoffs because they couldn't. And at that point, if they have that big of a disadvantage and this series was that close, logically Spirit should win this match. And if that's the final, then they should win. So
yeah, that's the question. That's the question I asked rather than actually who wins at this point. We have to ask what changes. Do we keep the players who are sick? Do we keep the crowd rush? Do we keep anything else? Like,
even if we stop there, I think the Swiss stage does change a bit because I think there are some teams who are definitely a bit out of place. I think FaZe 100 times, I don't think FaZe loses to Heroic in the opening game. The majority of the time. I don't think Eternal Fire 13 won them in the third game, if that even happens. So I think at that point, FaZe we end up with FaZe Spirit being a much later, like at least a semifinal. And I think it comes down to Spirit and FaZe basically. I think that's what changes. Spirit still go 3-0. I think you're right that FaZe might have the edge here. It's either it has to be FaZe or Spirit. I don't think you can bring in Mouse, or I don't think you can bring in Vitality.
My idea wasn't bringing in Mouse. Honestly, I'd wish it was Mouse.
I'm just any of the other teams. I don't think you can bring in Vitality. Not for the majority discussion. I don't think Vitality win in the majority of the time.
Because basically a Vitality without Zywoo was good enough for top 4, and it's not a terrible loss to FaZe. Like 13-7, 13-8, the maps you actually lose.
Fair game, yeah.
Yeah, do I give them the credit that they'll be better than that? And they'll actually beat FaZe enough times for it to matter? I'm not sure. I think they end up too close to really split in that sense.
I think, yeah. I just come back to Spirit. I think Spirit had an off event.
And Vitality were bad at Katowice.
It's pretty crazy to say, but I think Spirit had an unusually off event in Copenhagen. Like it's next event will prove that, I guess, which is Dallas. I think we're gonna see Spirit FaZe again, perhaps in a final if things go to plan. I think Spirit should have done better than they did had some things gone differently.
That's the thing. If we give them, okay, let's assume they were sick, they couldn't prep for the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Let's say that's true, because you never know. I'm gonna be honest, you never know. They did lose straight maps to Mouse.
Yes.
In the RMR.
Yes.
So maybe they were prime for the taking. They just weren't actually that ready. But even given all those excuses, look how close that final map with FaZe was.
Yeah, I think FaZe.
Every map was close outside of the Mirage for FaZe. So I don't know.
I think FaZe.
I still give it FaZe.
FaZe win the majority of the time. If FaZe definitely make the final the majority of the time for sure, and FaZe in the potential finals where FaZe don't play Spirit, they definitely win the majority of times. And then if Spirit is on the other end, however many games that is, that's hard to say. I think that's really hard to say. I think it's between Spirit and FaZe, and I'm gonna say Spirit for the sake of this. If I'm gonna answer the question, I think it's Spirit, but it's a narrow. It's like for me, it's like 45% Spirit, 43% FaZe, 2% anyone else. Like, not really, but like it's very close, and those two stand out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we run it 100 more times, so that means at least 1%. Like, we basically have to be credited to Na'Vi, because we watched it happen. They did get that 1%. But, yeah. I need to sneeze. Apologies. Right. Oh. That just suddenly hit me. And I think, I'd probably, if I'm running it 100 times, again, we're clearing sickness out of the way, I give Vitality like 6 or 7 like of these 100 wins. I'm going to be flattering and give Mouse 2, because I do believe they win that G2 series without the crowd rush. Then yeah, it has to be like a couple points in it between FaZe and Spirit, and I think FaZe win it more often than not, based on pedigree, based on the fact that Spirit looked mortal, at least, coming into this event. They didn't actually look as dominant, and they seemed capable of choking. So I would have given it to FaZe. Just about, though. Just about.
I see your point. I think I agree that I would have given it to FaZe, but for the sake of the question, I'm still going to say Spirit, just because Katowice was a 3-0 blowout, and you would have said the same thing there. If you ran Katowice 100 more times, on paper, FaZe should win that the more times. But then again, Spirit blew out FaZe in the finals.
It wasn't close. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just have to see. In 6 months, however, like Spirit versus FaZe goes for the next half year, that question is going to have a proper answer probably. But for now, I think it's really 50-50 between FaZe and Spirit.
Okay. Let's move on to our real retake. The first thing that needs to be brought up, and it's a pretty big deal for everyone, not just the pros this one. The map pool has changed. And after years of everyone complaining, begging for changes, Valve finally listened, stepped up, and fucking ignored us. They cut Overpass and brought back Dust 2. And you'll love to see it. There's nothing quite like Valve not giving a single fuck what we think, and doing whatever they had going on in their own minds anyway. Do I hate the change? Honestly, Overpass got dull at a pro level at times. And I do admit that Dust 2 needs to be at least tested in this new game at a pro level to see how good it can be. Because there were times when Dust 2, even though everyone knew exactly what to do, because everyone played it a million times in pugs, and so you had the same sort of standard ideas over and over again, and players just rushing things on timings to get headshots, the smokes are different. Everything's a little different. The game needs to be tried again, because so many little details of utility defined Dust 2 metas for years and years and years in CSGO. And we've changed the utility almost entirely now in 2. So we need to have another look at this game. This map, rather. So on a pro level, I'm excited.
That's what I was thinking, because we've had this debate for ages, and Dust 2 was obviously brought up. Like, some people did say, what if they brought back Dust 2? What, like, stuff like that. People have said that. And I remember one of the big points I always tried to make about whenever people brought up Cache or Dust 2, it was that, well, both of those maps had very closed skyboxes, which are now gone. Like, Smoke XX on Dust 2 basically didn't exist, like, to the same degree. But now they do. Like, now you can actually get pretty creative with like executing smokes. It's a lot easier to do. And for pro play, that definitely changes a lot of things. But I don't know. The TLDR for me is that I didn't like Overpass and I don't like Dust 2, so I'm virtually unchanged.
Yeah, as a player, I hate Dust 2 because of its stupid long open corridor style, and basically it's a deathmatch server. Because you're playing with 4 randoms who are there because this is the one map they understand, because it's fucking 4 straight lines. That's all it is. Like, oh, I'm sorry. 5 straight lines. My bad. And it's obnoxious to play, but at the same time, yeah, I'm kind of happy in the pro scene. We got some changes. I'm still waiting, of course, for the train return and Vertigo to just. I hate Vertigo because it took everything Nuke did right about like the layered sort of approach to the map with the verticality and fucked it up to the point where it's just not interesting to play or watch, I'm going to be honest. It's really not fun. And I've talked about this when doing demo reviews, like the fact that they've had to like kind of force these long curving lines, like essentially the path you have to take to go through B to get to A, like as a T-side lurker, makes it so uninteresting. Because a T-side lurk is all about basically, can I shift walk and like, play like red light, green light well enough to actually get to the other team before the fucking round's over. It's such a massive fucking distance, and there's no way to interact aside from going all the fucking way back again. Like, it's so obnoxious. So I'm really hoping that we have a Vertigo for Train like sort of change, because Train, as awful as it is to play in matchmaking, in Premier, even like higher level Face It, from what I've seen, can be very, very frustrating. At the highest level, it's beautiful. It is amazing Counter-Strike, and it's tense, it's tactical, and it can be an absolute brawl if needed. It's everything a map can be is found on Train. So I want Train back. For now, I'm happy to see a new Dust 2 meta, see how that evolves. And I'll embrace it with positivity rather than my usual anger.
I think I like Vertigo. I like Vertigo a lot. I wouldn't have wanted to see it gone. I think it is a little bit dull to watch, and I don't lurk often. I run out, and for that, I run in first, and for that, Vertigo is one of the more fun maps to play because there's a lot of fun timings and stuff you can do. But I don't think we're going to see Train, and I think there's one very simple reason for it, and it's the same reason why Overpass got removed. It sort of flew under the radar for me because I knew about this, but I didn't really make the connection about like why was there an argument for Overpass being the worst map in the game? Yes, and it is this one, and I didn't even think about it until after they removed it. It was the most sided map in the entire game. There was no other map which was as sided as Overpass, because that was the only map where you would say you get what 3 or 4 rounds on a T side, and you're like, this is a good T side, we should win this map now, because it was so CT sided. And for that, not sure I agree with it, but I can see why they remove it. And Train was sort of the same. It was a really sided map, both in pro play and like in pug play. So I'm not sure we're gonna see Train back unless it has some pretty dramatic changes.
Yeah, I don't see how sidedness has anything to do with good or bad, but that's a whole other debate.
No, I think that's their argument. They want a map which is evenly based. Valve, that is. They want a map which is very evenly.
All right, sick. We're cutting Anubis then. It's more T-sided than Overpass is CT-sided. Thank you. Goodbye. All right, cool.
Is it? Okay, so if you got 3 rounds on a CT side of Anubis, 3 9.5.
Oh, I'm guaranteeing you in matchmaking, I'm winning it. In matchmaking, I'm winning it every goddamn time. Every goddamn time. And, and on pro play, it's within 0.7%. It's within 0.7% in terms of the level. So yeah, I'm good. You can cut it. I don't mind.
I wouldn't mind cutting Anubis, but it's too new. I think you had to cut Valve. It seems to me that Valve don't like sided maps, which is why I don't think Train is coming back. And it was either Overpass or Anubis, and in Anubis it wasn't going to be. They paid. What did they pay? $150,000 for that map. They're going to milk it, and people like Anubis. Like
150,000.
Yeah, I think that's the standard rate for buying a Counter-Strike map is $150,000. That's what they bought Tusken for as well. Like when Valve buy a community map.
Okay.
And that's the amount that FM Pwn doesn't want to sell the map to Valve, and that's why we don't have cash. Anyway,
yeah, that's the change. That is the change.
Yeah,
we've kind of got diverted into other avenues. If you filter, by the way, on the HLTV stats by top 20, Overpass and Anubis are as sided as each other by 0.1%. It's 55.8 to 55.7. So they are as sided as each other. So I don't think that's vaguely relevant. I mean,
I think it is relevant
really
because I think it is relevant for Valve because they obviously they would never take out Anubis this early. It's the one they just brought in.
No, but they would change it to make it less T-sided at some point. Surely, if that's so important, you would have tried to make changes that favor CT sides, but they haven't.
Might be the next thing. Next update might be a big Anubis update.
Because it's been this way since release. It's never been anything but
just what I'm T-sided. Saying. Like they took out a CT-sided map for a map which is relatively 50-50 sided, or at least has been historically.
Well, historically, it's been all over the shop. It's meta by meta varied between CT-sided, T-sided. It's actually been quite diverse.
But it was relatively. It wasn't like huge. It wasn't like Nuke or Overpass levels of sided, where you would say, even if you were quite heavily like behind after the first half, you would go, "We're fine. We're going to win on the next side." So I just think Overpass a bit stale. I don't like it. I'm fine with it being removed. Dust 2 was the worst fucking thing they could have put in my opinion. But I don't care. I'm going to ban it either way.
As a player, yeah, I hate it.
I'm fine. I do wonder how this will impact Spirit, because a lot of some of you will remember that playing Dust 2 was the only ace card that Spirit had, like back in the day in 2021, 2022. The only thing they did was, it was like big in Spirit. They played Dust 2. They played Dust 2 really well. They beat everyone on Dust 2 and then lost every single other map. When they had,
maybe it's a good map for Chopper, so we'll see.
Yeah, and so also, I wonder how that's going to impact things.
Like Donk being sent forth on timings, like long fights, throw him up short. Yeah, that could be kind of difficult to deal with.
That's another crazy thing about Donk's meteoric rise. He has played 23 HLTV maps on Dust 2 total, which
God damn.
yeah, 23. So
those must be really old, yeah. God damn.
Yeah, casual play, I don't give a fuck. But LAN play or like pro play, that's gonna be interesting, I think.
Oh, and his Dust 2 maps are not good.
Mm.
Ooh, maybe it's not going to be OP Donk. It's from 2022 though. Like, how old is he? Like 12?
Yeah, exactly. I
Might not be that relevant.
I was very bad at Counter-Strike when I was 12.
Yeah, 2022. He's probably like 15.
Yeah,
maybe he's got a little better. But yeah, that's the map pool change. Not what anyone was really begging for, but fine, whatever. We'll embrace it. We'll see how it goes. Next on the docket though is a pretty big one. ESL Pro League Group A and B played out. And I'm assuming that's part of the reason we end up with a question about G2 needing to change players, because they got slightly embarrassed in most of their games. To be honest, they didn't have a convincing win until their rematch with M80. That's how long it took. I guess they closed out Falcons fairly convincingly, but aside from that, they did not look good at all. But let's start with Group A before we get too far ahead of ourselves. The teams that end up coming out there: Astralis, FaZe, Virtus.pro, and of course, the mighty 3D Max. Who would have seen that coming? Obviously, everyone. Everyone saw 3D Max coming out as one of the 2 highest seeds from Group A. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Like, look at that. They beat the mighty Saw in 2 overtimes. They managed to squeak by Fnatic. Well, they stopped Fnatic, but it's Fnatic. And then they got absolutely demolished by Astralis. This is one of the most fraudulent runs you'll see all year. And they somehow did it in the group of, like, pretty much the group of death. They got the luckiest draw possible.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm not sure these guys even have... Oh, no, they did add Gravity. Days ago.
Those
during
changes,
the event.
Those changes were not officialized till after they played, but yeah, they were already playing with the guys.
Yeah. Wow. All right. This is a lucky run because Saw were the replacement team for Cloud9 when they lost Electronic.
Yeah.
So good job. Yeah, I think for Group 1, something sort of interesting to note is that we talked about Astralis from Chengdu and thought this is a fluke run, and now they've just gone ahead and stomped this group, including FaZe and Eternal Fire.
I'm not putting any stock into the Eternal Fire win.
I'm not saying anything either just yet. I think EPL with this format, unfortunately, I don't think it's too interesting until you get to playoffs, because when you have 16 teams in playoffs or whatever it is, then it gets more interesting as a tier 1 event once you actually get to playoffs. Right now, it's just fun to look at the 3D maxes you expect to go out super early. But so I'm not putting too much stock into it right now. But I'm just gonna say we did say that they weren't legit, and they sort of seem kind of legit at the moment. But
no.
they're starting to build towards that. Towards that.
They have 3 players rated 1.27 or higher. This is not how Counter-Strike works. This will not keep on working, and they will not win this event. So I'm not worried about that.
They will not. No.
They've gotten the best possible seeding for the playoffs, which it will work massively in their favour, no doubt. Now, they don't have to beat a bunch of teams just to make it to the quarterfinal. They start there.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I'm still not sold.
No, I'm not sold. I'm just saying that, like, if they had lost in these groups, then yes, we would have been right. Chengdu was a fluke, and they've at least staved off that, like, the proof that they were a fluke. They've at least postponed it, if nothing else. So they're doing something. They're cooking.
Yeah, but that's the thing about Chengdu as well. They did beat FaZe in groups, and then they lost to FaZe in playoffs. So
true.
We'll see how they hold up to more harsh scrutiny. I mean, it's not much scrutiny in terms of the stage. If we all remember Malta, it's a sold out crowd of 40 people that will be watching ESL Pro League, the premier ESL event.
About as many people who watched PTO win the Swedish Cup in football yesterday.
Exactly.
About one person is going to get that, but all right.
Yeah, the Who and the Who. Yeah, the other parts of this group that were fascinating. Yeah, FaZe had to go through the lower bracket. They did so pretty comfortably. I mean, dropping a map to an Eternal Fire, not the greatest, but they still made it out. And then Virtus.pro with Electronic debuting. Now, a lot of people, myself included, when they saw the signing, went, holy shit, panic stations, what the fuck just happened? Pretty rough debut considering that's what we were expecting. But the fact they made it out of groups, I think staves off some of those doubts. Because you're like, this was the Choppy Seas debut. They made it through. We'll see how they play in playoffs, and we'll see how this works out in the next event. But the fact that they started with a kind of rough loss to Fnatic, I mean, as a guy who was rooting for Fnatic, I was loving it. At the same time, I knew this wouldn't last for Fnatic or for Virtus Pro. At least in my heart of hearts, Virtus Pro were never going to look this bad, right? No, they turned it around. They beat Saw, did lose to FaZe, but then beat Fnatic in the rematch and beat Saw to go through. So not big names to go through, but 4 teams make playoffs from every group. So you kind of don't have to beat the biggest names. You just have to beat those, secure yourself a spot, and move on. So a bit excited for Virtus Pro to see them in playoffs. It's still not the most convincing run.
I'm gonna be excited to see them in the next event, unless they do something here. But like, probably an element of like coming into this new system, which is gonna be pretty. It's gonna be pretty new for Electronic to play under Jame, I think. Like the style of calling that he has and all of this. Probably short notice as well in preparing for this event, since with VP, since Cloud9 literally had to pull out at the event instead of, like, we all know this move seemed to happen pretty quickly. Nobody saw it coming, and it seems like it was done over a weekend or something. So probably not a huge amount of time to prep. Electronic individually, 4th best player, which is still good, but like I'll take the rest of the CPL for them to like work shit out and then take a break, and then there's more events to play. So well
then
done
the real honeymoon starts.
Yeah, then it starts.
Yeah, because we got a good flip, we got a good level from Jame and Fame, and the Electronic Norbert sort of bottom of the scoreboard. I'm not sure how long that'll last, especially, well, not so much the Norbert part, but the Electronic part. I expect him to take an uptick. I'm not sure he'll perpetually be like the second highest rated player, but I think he will outperform Fame once he gets accustomed to the system, and because he is a player with probably better skills and a higher degree of pedigree and understanding of especially playoff Counter-Strike. So I'm looking forward to this roster. Let's move on to Group B, though. Group B, we saw, thankfully, Vitality make it through. It seems it's not long COVID for ZywOo, just a week-long illness that ruined a major. But aside from that, he seemed a little more on it. Put up a solid, like a 1.7 in the groups across his 6 maps. They strolled through 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, never in doubt. But the more shocking part of all of this, the Mongolian Horde. I mean, it's been pouring over the hills for a while, but finally it's smashed into European territory, defeating Falcons 2-1 in a fairly convincing series for them. Like, they smashed Mirage, beat them on Ancient. I was very happy with the way they played, and it wasn't the Blitz show. That's always something that worried me. It's like, is it Blitz calling himself into wins, like for the stats, for also like everything else? No. We saw Techno 9-10 lead the way, and that's great because Techno's been one of the most skilled players on this team forever. The fact that he's capable of having these bigger series is great news as well for everyone. They then took down G2, 2-zip, and it wasn't fucking close. When it's not even m0NESY is performing, there is no system to fall back on. There is nothing to fall back on. There's not even a Nico right now guaranteed every game. So yeah, they got smashed. They lost to... Mongols ended up losing to Vitality in the decider game, but who cares? That's one seeding point. Like, no one gives a fuck. You did what matters, Mongols. You made the playoffs. So I was so impressed. And I think the question is, at this point, are they like a legit team? And couldn't we expect this level? I'm not saying that every single event they go to, they 2-0 G2 and G2 look completely outclassed. I'm saying, do they consistently beat teams like, I say, Falcons, Heroic, who are just like 6th to 12th? Sort of like, do they have a good chance in those matchups more consistently? Maybe not 6th, that's a bit too high, but like 7th to 12th sort of teams. Like, do they start entering that conversation? Like we saw Eternal Fire kind of did for a little bit now. They've been sort of, ranked HLTV, on HLTV ranking they're 7th. They have these wins that come through every now and then. Do we see Mongols joining that sort of current Eternal Fire ranking? Like, somewhere between 8th and 12th. Able to have upsets and able to, if the doors open, sneak through into playoffs. Like, if it's not the most closed, rigid system. Like, this one's perfect.
Yeah. I think we're some ways off of that. just simply because of the fact that they beat Falcons, which was well done, but I think that's almost expected at this point. That game was a lot closer than the names, than the actual team names would have you believe. And then the one win they got was against G2. Out of all teams, it was against G2. If it was anyone else out of the top teams except for G2, I would have said yes, they are like the new Eternal Fire. But the thing with Eternal Fire is that on a good day, I think Eternal Fire can beat anyone. And right now, Mongols have proven that they can beat G2 on a good day. And G2 on a bad day can lose to anyone. So like this is if it was anyone else, yes, but I want to see how they do in playoffs. They're gonna start in the top 12. So, but yeah, they are. I mean, continually proving that they are legit. Almost no matter who plays there, they just make it work. Credit to Blitz. I've been operating so much off of this the thing that Nero made with the stats, and 9-10 was one of the worst oppers on that target rating thing. And then he comes out here instantly and starts doing very, very good. That's well done, really well done. He doesn't really need to do that, to be honest. Like you said, Techno is a big. Oh, he does. In this case, they needed him to, but he shouldn't have to do that, considering that the rest of the players that's on there, like Sensu and Techno, are very good players. Blitz himself as well. So, but in this case they did. But like, yeah, it could have just as well been anyone else doing that big of a job. So good job to Mongols for doing that. Good system, good work.
Yeah, do you know what's wild? Actually, I just checked.
Yeah.
9-10 in that series against G2 did almost all his work on the T side. 28 of his 37 kills in those two maps were on the T side.
I'm going to check how many of those were op frags as well.
That's literally what I'm looking up as well.
Yeah.
Because if he did that all on a rifle, I'd be insane. But if he does that all on T side with an AWP, god damn.
28 out of 37. Yeah, 28 out of 30. It's Anubis, one of them, but yeah.
16 AWP kills.
Yeah.
So 16 of his 37 kills are AWP. That's just AWP kills, just generally. Across the series. So he did a fair bit on the rifle, but he did also quite a chunk on the AWP. So,
yeah.
Bit of a wild series, I think, from himself. Like, you don't really expect this level of play.
Yeah, T-side opening.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Mongols, I think they are consistently getting scary. And they've been stable with this lineup for, like, well, I want to say at least 3-4, like 6 months. But no, I'm actually looking up the numbers. It's been since last September when they brought in Senzu. That's how long this team's been together.
Yeah.
So, 7 months. It's actually been a little longer than I thought. If this is how they start getting rolling, you know, they were always scary no matter the roster. They've now got the roster they want. I'm actually thinking this team, top 15 is realistic for them in terms of a position in the world. Realistic, not even a
yeah.
Not a pipe dream. So great news for them. Another team that upset the apple cart, Bet Boom. They came into this, they beat M80 in their opening best of 3. Not the most shocking. Conversation I had on the double swing was, this is pretty realistic. They then lose to Vitality. Got crushed, no surprise. They then beat Falcons. So they 2-zip Falcons, who just didn't look good at this event at all. Even with Dupree having not the worst stats possible.
Dupree looked good, yeah.
They just haven't looked good at this event. They then go on and beat M80. Overtime on Anubis to decide it. Those two teams, plucky underdogs and then some. Like, sure, they don't end up both going through in the end, because G2 do manage to get the revenge victory against M80, despite Mabsumd's best efforts. But that Bet Boom run really proves, I think, how stupid the ESL Pro League format is.
Yeah.
Because the fact that we could realistically talk about, 4 out of 8 teams in a group go through, and we look at the groups they end up making, and you're like, god damn. This is, both of them almost made it out. It helps that G2 and Falcons sucked, but still.
Yeah. But yeah, this run got people talking about mayonnaise. Magnojes. How do you say it? I'd say mayonnaise.
I call it mayonnaise, but it's definitely not, because it's not mayonnaise.
I think it is the Russian word for mayonnaise.
No, I looked it up. It's not, because the Russian word for mayonnaise is pronounced mayonnaise, not with a J randomly thrown in. Like, unless the J is Cyrillic for an N sound.
No.
But then what's the rest of it? Like, so I don't think it actually is straight up.
Mayonnaise. All right. Mayonnaise. Got people talking about
Mayonnaise.
mayonnaise. People are talking about him now like he's one of the next big prodigies, and he's like who Cloud9 should sign in their rebuild because they are rebuilding. I don't know about that, but like, yeah, good job from BetBoom.
Yeah,
This is sort of what we
expected
expected to see. This is sort of what we expected to see when they put this team together, right? Like this was supposed to be like the start, and then they did make that like Sydney or Dallas or whatever the fuck it was. But like this is sort of like Nafri comes down and starts building a revenge arc with talented Russian players, and like this is sort of it, like coming through playoffs such as EPL playoffs and upset games here and there, and then it's sort of been slightly up and down. So if they can keep this up, then
yeah, it's been very up and down. And the problem they've had realistically is Chiron was meant to be their top end rifler in terms of performance. If you looked at it on paper, and then Zorte was supposed to kind of be a bit of an AWP carry, and Zorte's really not had that level in a lot of their games. And Nafani's taken, I think, so many of the opening duels historically that I want Chiron taking. And then it didn't make sense the way they were using, like the Danitz guy who got replaced by Mayonnaise. Finally, actually, like it started clicking a bit better, I think, for them as a roster. And that's sort of why they look so much better here. But all in all, I still think they have some issues. Like
they do.
I don't know why Nafany brings in hardcore, like aimer, aggro kids, then still takes 30% of the opening duels himself. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. But if it's working like this now, they've got these players in place. Why not?
Yeah. But yeah, good job from BetBoom.
Yeah, he's still taking like 37% of their T-side openers.
Yeah.
So frustrating. But yeah, no, the other big story was MAT. After they, also beat G2. And yeah, I was frustrated as hell watching them because in that second G2 game, the Ancient game should not have been a loss. They picked it, they should have won it. Honestly, I think the team just didn't have enough in them to last that long. If you watched the game, like Sin was trying his little heart out on his new team. He had Malbs MD fragging with him, and the overall like limiting factor for them in this series remained their Rauper slacks. Just this was a bad series. He had some good series in this event. I'm not just here to talk shit about him, but in that series, yeah, he was a bit disappointing. Ancient wasn't that great a map for him. And Inferno, only one man really showed up. That was Malbs if you watched the game. The stats say Swisher also was there. I didn't feel it, watching the game, that he was really that present. And especially once they got like smashed on their T side, it just felt very disheartening. But no, I really thought they had a good chance to go through. Like especially the way they were playing, they get to rematch G2 of all people to go out. Frustrating, but hey.
Yeah,
decent performance and way better than we expected with Sin coming in, having played 2 officialdom. I think like 2 best of ones or like 4 best of ones in like Mountain Dew League level play. ECL it's called now. Like that's it. Like 2 freebie maps is all they played pretty much. I think I was pleasantly surprised with how well Sin called and Sin played, considering what little time they've had.
Yeah, they were also there in the World Cup qualifier. They actually won that, and I think Sin was there. Yeah, but yeah, not a huge amount of time for Sin, and not a huge amount of games. So it took a while to get this move happening, and now it's sort of paying dividends. I remember seeing people talk about like a similarity between Sin and like Gob B's way of calling and playing and like building a system, which is not surprising considering how long he was in the big system with Gob B, like 2 years or something. So perhaps there is an element of that. And Gob B was also one of the guys who were on NRG at one point. I think it would have been him.
Gob B was on NRG, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the second coming of the German North American hybrid roster.
The German American hybrid. I mean, once it got us NASA, it got us to the moon. Now it's going to get MAT to a major championship, right?
Yeah, except hopefully Sin doesn't put up a .83. Holy shit.
Yeah, and hopefully Sin isn't a Nazi. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too late. 50 minutes in.
But it was really cool. It's really cool because I think Malbs, he said somewhere on Twitter like having this good run just lifted a lot of stuff off his shoulders, because he was like, the past few years have been so frustrating, and I could see that, because it was just as frustrating for us fans, like knowing that this guy was this good, and he was on Team 1, and he was like stuck in America, and he was playing on 0-0 Nation, and they didn't really do anything, and then he was benched, and he was back on Team 1, which was another whole thing. And then this M80 period, they had headwinds, like they had the Manx thing, which was just Manx pulling out of the project for some reason. Like all of these issues here and there. They had to play with Def, who hasn't played Counter-Strike in 4 years. It's really frustrating, and then finally they get this, and I wonder if that's going to change anything for the team going forward. Like finally they got something, and perhaps now is the time where like the team that people start talking about, like perhaps this could be the third North American team to actually be present at the very least next to Complexity and Liquid. Perhaps this is like the start of that. So
yeah, I mean, I'm dreaming a little bigger for them. I'm saying they overtake Complexity. If Complexity keeps stagnating and not finding, some form again, if it's still
absolutely possible.
Yeah, they're just living on the old dream of, oh, look how good JT was at the start of CS2. Like that's all that they really have. Like yeah, they could overtake them. So yeah, the Malb story has been so up and down and all over the shop, because he was never the problem really. And if you look at, especially the most frustrating time for me, I had 2 prospects playing on the same roster on 0-0 Nation. Neither one used even vaguely properly, neither one with a proper support system. The roster was garbage, like the way it was constructed. There was no philosophy behind it, and they were just being wasted. We finally found a home for Malbs. Like I thought that when they first brought the M80 project together, this was finally a good place for Malbs. Now that they found a replacement for Manx, I did think things were trending upwards before he took his essentially a leave of personal absence. Like, just said he had personal issues and left. We found the trajectory again with Sin coming in, so I'm really happy for that. We should now need to get Try on a good team.
Yeah.
And then with the 0-0 Nation disaster will truly be behind us, and we can move on into the sunset. All right, I think that Falcons, Falcons didn't look good. Really didn't look good.
I think we wrapped up these groups.
Yeah, that's it. Falcons didn't look good.
C and D are underway. Not really exciting. Group D is kind of unexciting. Like nothing interesting is happening here.
Big are a map up against Na'Vi, and FlyQuest are a map up against Boss.
That's not surprising.
Yeah,
big being a big could make playoffs here. That's interesting, I guess. Does it matter? I probably would have. I would have said they make playoffs here, especially with Res being out. I would have said big make playoffs here. So that's not really too unexciting. If they make it by beating Na'Vi,
even with Res in attendance, I still don't have an IP making playoffs.
I'd give them a shot, but like big should have made this. If they make it against Na'Vi, that's nice. But I would have had them through either way. The one interesting talking point, Group C is vaguely interesting, I guess, because it has Liquid, it has Furia, who have absolutely bombed out. And related to that, Smooya is in a whole fucking thing once again.
I was. What the hell was that?
Smooya was. He said something. He said I think after, did they beat Monty or did they lose to Monty? They lost to Monty, right?
They lost to Monty. 2-0.
Yeah, and in response to that, like when they posted about like I closed with no cigar 2-0 against Forzy, he replied and he said Slava Ukraini under that. And then all of the rumors started going about Smooya wasn't going to play the rest of the event because Forza was so pissed off. And
they're not really Forza though.
No, but the org, he's there with the org, and this is a dead team. And like, so that was the talk that was going around, and then he ended up still being here, and he issued a statement which he didn't write.
He's so stupid though. I'm
which
sorry.
Is
so stupid. Like you showed up to an event with 4 Russians essentially. That's the Forza roster, right? Or was one of them like something else? But
there's a few cool things about this. So, or cool things, but like funny things.
All right, one Belarusian. But yeah.
When he came here, he was like, I just want to clarify, I'm just here to help them out. Like I'm just here to play with some good players. I'm just here to like put my own stock up by playing a LAN. I'm not gonna represent Forza. I'm not gonna like represent their beliefs. I'm not gonna wear their jersey. And in the first game, he played with a black T-shirt. And then now he's playing in Forza jersey. So, I mean, he is just thoroughly like, Forza were definitely like, yeah. But yeah, they definitely forced him to issue some ChatGPT generated statement about like how much he regrets what he said. And,
this was about
yeah.
what it's honestly, no, it's no surprise. Just no surprise that this is. Smooya showed up with Forza. The fact that he ended up in the headlines for all the wrong reasons is so unsurprising.
Yeah. It's fucking funny. When he issued that statement, it's a long text on Twitter, and there's one like, I don't know how reliable these things are, but you've seen like the things that you copy paste the text and then it reads it and it determines how likely it is that text was AI generated.
I've heard how unreliable those are. Yeah.
This thing was like 82% likelihood this thing is ChatGPT. And it probably is like some Forza manager wrote a statement, translated it into English using AI, and then sent it to Smooya. Yeah, he didn't write this shit. And I do love the Monty reply underneath, which says, "If you were forced to write this, blink your eyes twice."
Yeah, he's never been good at managing optics, ever, historically, or knowing when to shut the hell up. So, unsurprising. Still, UK's biggest Counter-Strike player.
Yeah, it's him. I mean, I pray Gizmi takes him over as the next UK CS guy.
That's crazy. Absolutely idiotic. But yeah, we have 24 minutes to do the entire Eternal Shuffle.
All right, let's go.
So let's do it pretty quickly. I'm gonna list off topics, summarize them briefly, and then if I actually give a shit about your opinion, I'll ask you to give it. Just put it that way, because some of these I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Right, Cloud9, Bench, Perfecto, and Hobbit. That opens the door to transfers. That's a goddamn it. The team is dead. Oh, come on!
I know what you said. I know what you said. I'm gonna have to interrupt here. Cloud9 are rebuilding. They got invited to an event. There are gonna be 3 new players coming in here with Boomage and Exile, or maybe even more. But someone is coming in for sure. Yes.
All right, cool. 3 random Russians will play with them whilst they figure out what to do. Apex have transferred us the entire team and released Stico, which again is honestly mostly just great news for the transfer conversations we can have in other teams. Right? Am I going crazy? If someone could pick up the 4 of them plus 1, that's not crazy. But for now, I'm assuming they're going to be ripped apart for parts, because there are some really, really tantalizing parts on this team. Most notably, Jacob and Nork. But still, Sassanito's not been bad. He's not been bad. Entropic have rebuilt their roster again. If you follow Tier 2 CS, you'll know this happens roughly every 3 to 6 months. Entropic smash things to bits and try again. Ever since the Alien days, they've been just doing this over and over again. So the new roster, the new players are Fascia, Regali, and Buzz, joining Marix and Tizian. That's 5 players. It's probably 5 of the best players they've had in a long time. So honestly, it might be exciting, but let's be real. It's very hard to judge how well an Entropic roster is going to do when they're just mashing things together. And they usually peak and then rebuild because they realise they've peaked and start going down the hill again. That's usually how it works. Because they did have a peak not too long ago during like some qualifiers and stuff. You thought, they're actually looking kind of tasty. They started going back down the hill. The York knew, smash it, try again. And this is the new attempt.
I just realized something about Apex. You said they could sign 4+1. They can't, because like a lot of the internal stuff, like Stico released a video where he talked about it. They had big fights. Like, it was a bad vibe within this team. This 5 did not work. I do not think those 4 players are going to work out. I don't think Stico was like the one guy fighting everyone. I think I would someone who came in afterwards who didn't make the Paris run has a bad vibe with someone else on this team. It just doesn't work out. This is going to be blown up. Some of them might stay with Apex. I think they have just transfer listed them to see interest, and then if they want to keep them in the rebuild, they can. They're going to keep them. But I think, it's big for transfer news.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on. Entropic suck ass. Let's move on.
I mean, there's talent on this roster. I like Regali. I think, but Fascia works in the right context. But it's a developing situation. Next, Cold Zero has joined Red Canids. Now here's a fucking mess, because he got announced. I thought, oh great, Cold Zero's gone off to some other tiny Brazilian org to do nothing. Whatever. I mean, enjoy retirement, bro. This is essentially what it is. And I thought nothing of it. A few days later, we start getting news that apparently he's still under contract with Legacy. And then a day later, we find out he isn't under contract with Legacy. And there's a brewing court case. So do you have any insight into this that I've missed? Because I'm very lost at who's even like at fault here. Or is anyone at fault?
I haven't read a lot about this. I thought it was really strange because Legacy did, according to Coldzera, he like posted a tweet, "I am now out of Legacy" on the 19th of April. Legacy claimed that the contract is still valid, and that's why Red Canids couldn't have signed him. Like they claim that that's still valid, and they have like urged TOs to not let Red Canids enter events with Coldzera, and they're still registering Coldzera as their 6th player for like events, like as a substitute. And then Coldzera's lawyer and Red Canids are like, dude, there was no contract. Like the contract, he was a free agent when he signed for Red Canids. There's no issue. I just think this is so weird. Like this is literally legal contract stuff. There is going to be a truth to this. Like how can you even disagree? Like, and what's the point in disagreeing? Did they like? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's super weird. Super weird. Something is going to come out of this. I'm going to guess that Coldzera stays with Red Canids. I haven't actually read a lot of these statements, so I don't know who's.
No, there's actual legal documents or like it's letters and stuff you can read, but it's all in Portuguese.
Yeah, I haven't read a huge amount of the reports. I don't get a vibe for who is like more sensible or not sensible, but I am probably going to side with the org claiming he is still under contract. They're probably dumb. So
yeah. Yeah. So next big news: Pain are set to sign Snow, and if you hear my keyboard going, it's because I'm looking up who the fuck that is.
His name Snow's in before, and he played with
he was Snow's in. Oh yeah,
he played with Young Gods when he was 13, which was cool.
Give that kid a fucking burger! Holy shit! Right, no, yeah, they've signed a very young player. That's cool. Endpoint
are going to
are going to already have. If this news is out, he's already bracking with them. Let's just move on. Endpoint have signed Sayot and Crucial. Now I have been kind of all over the shop emotionally about this move because losing Slend was a big deal. I thought he was a very good player for them, and I think he's so far shown a decent level with Gamer Legion, even though it's early doors. The fact that they've cut Switcher is kind of like that was improvement, like addition by subtraction. Adding Sayot is actually pretty cool because that guy's been looking pretty good on the Sprout rosters. So I think they've made one good move here. Bringing back Crucial seems misguided. I don't rate Crucial. I don't know what he's going to add to the team, really. I'd rather they take a risk on like a talent that they scout, like a risk. Take a real risk rather than bringing back Crucial again. Because I just don't rate him as a player to that level.
Yeah, what they had was a good MHL replacement and a bad Heavy God replacement, and they now have a very good Heavy God replacement and a pretty bad Slend replacement on this team. Like Sedjot coming into is effectively being the new Heavy God, and I think that's going to be a good move. I think that works. Crucial, no. Surely they could have found better, but if they're going for something like stability and like trying to build some stability, try to like let Azumu and Sedjot shine or something, maybe. But like if Endpoint have any hopes of being a good team rather than just tier 2 mainstays who sell off players for money, then no, that's not the move.
No, they are likely still going to remain a team that like develops then releases, develop then sells talent. But I was really hoping we'd see a move from them to try and move up a few echelons in terms of their level of competition and who they can actually play with and against. And that crucial part of it just doesn't make much sense. But next move, TSM have released Poison, Quertz, and Jax. So their roster's now just 3 players officially: Valdez, Zyphon, and Joel. This team has been a disaster in terms of their results. And honestly, when they made their signings, I thought we'd see much more. We haven't even seen the best of Joel from this roster, so I don't know. I'm a bit whiffy about this whole team. They probably need to sign an IGL and stop trying the Valda thing, because it's been a long time and it's never worked at any moment. So I think it's time to move on from him as the IGL. Keep him as a veteran rifler maybe, but not as the IGL. I don't think that's really a functional option right now.
Zyphon's kind of just sitting here sub 1.0 playing with Joel on TSM, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, rough.
Someone's gonna come in, someone's gonna do something. Nothing's gonna happen. Fuck.
I mean,
Yeah.
if they're serious about trying to build again, they may take a risk and sign someone that makes sense, like some financial risk, or
Yep.
maybe go get like I don't know, maybe take a risk on Sense or something. Like you guys get someone who's an actual IGL or owners available. Maybe teach him English. Like I don't know, try something. And the final news, it's bad news. 4 Impact teams have been released or have disbanded. So those are VP, One Win, Guild, and Cheaters or Fearless Cheaters. And some of these. Wow, all of these, like 3 of the 4 of these, are they, am I going crazy? Are they CIS teams? Like VP Angels was Russian, One Win was Russian, Cheaters was Russian.
Yep. So I think VP Angels have disbanded entirely, One Win have disbanded entirely, Fearless Cheaters disbanded entirely. That was Vilga's new team. And Guild, I'm not sure they're like fully disbanded or are sticking together, but they are definitely released from Guild. Yeah. I guess this is sort of expected. You know, I think all of these teams had varying results in the Impact League itself. So, like, I don't think either of them ever made finals. So it makes sense that some of these orgs are sort of like, let's take a step back. But yeah, Guild especially is one that I think is going to be really good to pick up. Or if they're not sticking together, there's some very good pieces that someone could definitely pick up for next season. They have, I think, out of these ones, Guild and Cheetahs are the only ones who have an invite for the next Impact League. So
yeah, Cheetahs were like a map away from essentially being at the finals this year. They were a really good team. So
yeah,
disappointing.
Guild are the ones who are the replacement invite as well. So like if something ends up happening, Guild might get picked up really quick and then fly to Dallas by some random org who wants to come in. Guild especially, I think, is a good team. Fearless Cheetahs are disbanded entirely, so like their invite is probably going to become an open qualifier spot. But as long as Guild stick together, then they still have the impact spot for next year, which is pretty big. Like Guild is a big org. I could see another big org coming in. Whoever wants to join or rejoin Impact, we have had a couple who left, like G2. So whoever wants to join the Impact League, they could and should pick up Guild, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if you don't,
But
you want to put money in or you want to take a risk on someone, take a risk on Vilga because honestly, she's a pretty good IGL, still a good player, and who joined that roster and almost got them there just immediately. They had one season, like one season, they almost made it.
I didn't follow didn't follow the group because all of the Swedes were in one group. But you have 15 CIS players at the moment, including Vilga. You could probably put something together there. You could probably do
a really good team, yeah. So yeah, that's the Eternal Shuffle blitzed through. Just because I'm almost out of time. Speaking of, let's finish off with prospects of the week. I'm going to go first, in case you missed it, and the viewer numbers said you did. PR demo review is actually up. It's a very long video, not condensed at all. But I don't really have time to spend 30 hours on an episode of Prospects. Not if I want to put one out every week or two. So this is going to be how I'm going to do it. I'm going to look to make improvements. But PR was my pick of my player then, and I'm going to talk about him briefly here. He's coming through a Maz NXT, and he's another player that just... Bro is 16. And he plays with a polish. He makes sound decisions in like 95 to 99% of rounds, like depending on the demo. You can basically not find a fault in terms of his like positioning, util usage, decision making. And the fights he does lose, he's just not hitting the shot. Like, that's it. Sure, that happens sometimes. I do say in the demo review, I don't think he's one of those like super elite, super sharp guys. He's more like really consistent with his aim, and he will be carried by the fact that he will be in the right place, taking the right fight at the right time. And I think that's still massively positive. There are many players like that. I think a pro comparison you can make right now, and it's going to be cheesy and easy to use because he came through the academy and looked pretty similar, was Yimfat. I don't think he's going to have as high a ceiling as Yimfat, but I definitely think he can fill the same roles. And, well, bro's 16. He'll still have time to develop, potentially reach that sort of peak, and be a very productive player. So, another Maz NXT guy who just looks pro-ready at this point and has so many years left to develop. PR's really exciting.
Yep. Cool player. Statistically, he sticks out. This NXT team as a whole is sort of sticking out recently. I feel like they're taking some wins that.
Their win rate's slowly going up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most recently I was, they take some wins, and I'm sort of surprised that they win sometimes, based on the players who were on there. They beat Bleed 2-0 while sort of ending Bleed's giant win streak. Good job. PR obviously one of the guys who stand out in that regard. Someone's going to pick him up. I don't think it's Mouse right now. Mouse have such a young...
No, obviously not.
Yeah, but he's going to be sold somewhere, which is going to be really good for him. Probably soon. I think. Yeah.
I don't want it to be soon. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't think he should be sold off to another team soon. I think they should wait like another year or so, like potentially more. He's 16. He's not ready to like travel, compete, be on stages and stuff. Like realistically, there's not that many Monacies in the world, so I wouldn't bother going out and buying him. Or instead, I'd start conversations now about like, in 6 months, why don't we have him on a loan for 3 months to play some online games if I'm another team, or if I'm maybe another academy like that wants to start up for another big team. Like maybe this player I try to poach from my academy. I just don't want to risk it on such a young player. Like he's still a kid. I wouldn't want him in my team just yet.
He is the highest rated male player from Czechia in 2024. Tinka has only 7 maps, but technically has a higher average. So he is the highest rated player. Yeah, good player.
Yeah.
Good player. Should I move on to mine?
Yeah, let's hear it.
MIBR won a LAN event this week, or in the past 10 days. They won ESL Challenger Melbourne. By far, the standout player in Melbourne was Insani, as you might have expected. 151 average in 9 maps. I thought this event would have an MVP because I think challengers have had it in the past, but then when you look at the team list, it doesn't qualify. I think it has to be something like 2 top 15 teams attending, something like that. But he would have had his career first MVP award if there had been an MVP award. MIBR sort of taking this event. I probably would have said they were the second best team attending, next to Aurora. But Insani just stomped, like absolutely stomped. The rest of the team weren't bad, but like, yeah, you don't see a 151 event rating very often, especially on LAN. Insani should be, what is he now, 20 years old? Yeah. Last year sort of made his debut, or when he came into MIBR at the start of the year.
Yeah, he's been on there just over a year. Yeah.
Yeah, we remember when he came into Katowice and just did very well. He's won 20 across those 18 months or 16 months or whatever it is now with MIBR. Someone's taking Insani, period. Someone is taking Insani to victory for Brazil, whether it be MIBR or if Furia get their act together, or if Imperial or Pain become consistent contenders. Someone is going to have Insani and someone is going to win with Insani at some point. This is like the coldest take ever. But he had a great week, so that's why he's here. Yeah,
I remember like about 2-3 months into his stint on MIBR, I think it was a live stream where I was watching demos, and I was watching Insani demos. Bro, the guy is so good, and it's so annoying. Like he was hitting headshots everywhere, even though he's not prepared for a fight. He was hitting the shot. At the time wasn't playing with much poise and much nuance, much. There wasn't very high IQ involved with his game. It was very raw. But he's come leaps and bounds since then. He's become so much more polished. So now that he doesn't even have to take fights he's not expecting anymore. Like he's not just running around like a headless chicken and just killing everyone, which is kind of what it looked like at times. Especially when he was playing CT side Anubis, he was playing at the mid doors, and bro, the guy was never ready for the angle they actually peaked. But he just kept hitting the shot.
Yeah.
So he's a mechanical monster who's finally figured out his place on the team, and it's just gone leaps and bounds. I think if you want to make a Brazilian dream team, step 1 is Biguzera, step 2 is Insani, and then step 3 is Kesurata right now. And in that order, considering the last 6 months. That's how you'd probably build it. So yeah, Insani, big ups, monster. The fact that he's still only 20, it speaks massively towards him, and well, it means the Brazilian team scene has a future, which, given how some of the teams have been performing, didn't seem really possible.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But okay, all right. That's the episode. I have 5 minutes to end this recording and get back to work, so let's make it quick. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, you are my hero. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more, and leave a comment telling me your thoughts about any of the topics we discussed today, and become a member if you want to be a part of the next member Q&A. We love the questions, and we love just debating them with each other, especially when they're stupid, hypothetical, and completely nonsensical. So go ahead, ask anything you want. And yeah, that's all for this one. Goodbye.